All right, let's dive into a book that truly shaped a decade of startups and continues to challenge how we think about the future. Peter Thiel's 0 to 1. We're going to explore why creating something completely new is the single most powerful thing you can do in business. So, here's our roadmap. We'll be walking through 6 core ideas, starting with what progress really means. Then we'll get into why monopolies might actually be a good thing, how to think differently from the crowd, what it takes to build a company that lasts, the future of humans and AI, and finally, the ultimate choice that every creator has to make. The summary's author starts us off with a warm welcome. And you know what? Let's just dive right into the first big idea. First up, this fundamental question: how is the future actually built? This is the core of what Thiel calls the challenge of progress. Okay, so Thiel kicks things off with this really powerful distinction. On one hand, you've got horizontal progress. He calls it 1 to N, which is basically just copying things that already work. Think about globalization, taking something from one place and replicating it everywhere. But on the other hand, you've got vertical progress, 0 to 1, and that's about creating something brand new. This is true invention, real innovation, and Thiel argues it's the only way we build a future that's truly different from today. All of this really builds to the one question at the very heart of the book, and it's a challenge to every single one of us. What valuable company is nobody building? It's such a powerful question because it forces all of us to look for opportunities where everyone else isn't. And if you do manage to find an answer to that question, you might just build what Thiel calls a monopoly. This brings us to probably his most provocative idea: the monopoly blueprint, or as he puts it, why competition is for losers. He completely flips the idea of monopoly on its head. He says it's not some sign of corporate evil, it's the reward you get for creating something so uniquely valuable that nobody else can even compete with you. So what actually makes a monopoly? Well, Thiel points to 4 key ingredients. First, you need proprietary technology that's at least 10 times better than whatever the next best thing is. Second, you need network effects where your product actually gets more useful the more people use it. Third is economies of scale, so your business gets stronger as it gets bigger. And finally, a powerful brand that pretty much becomes the name for the whole category. And this leads to another one of his really contrarian takes. Forget about first mover advantage. Thiel argues that being first is totally useless if someone else comes along right after you and just does it better. The real goal is to be the last mover, the company that creates the final dominant version of a technology and then owns that market for years and years to come. Okay, so building a monopoly like that, it requires a totally different way of thinking. You have to develop what Thiel calls a contrarian's mindset and be willing to unlearn everything that everyone else just assumes is true. To really understand this mindset, Thiel takes us back to the dot-com crash. He argues that Silicon Valley learned all the wrong lessons from it, to just play it safe with tiny improvements, to stay lean instead of having a real plan, to just copy your competitors and to ignore sales. This became the new conventional wisdom. But Thiel's point is that this so-called wisdom just created a whole generation of founders who were scared to make big, bold bets. The real lesson wasn't that boldness is dangerous. No. It's that boldness without a clear plan, now that's fatal. And this all leads to his framework for how we look at the future. He maps it out on 2 axes: optimistic versus pessimistic, and definite versus indefinite. So for example, indefinite optimism is basically just hoping the future will be better, but having absolutely no idea how to make that happen. Definite optimism, on the other hand, is believing the future will be better because you have a concrete plan to actually build it. So it's probably no surprise which one Thiel champions. It's definite optimism. This is the core belief that the future is something you design, not something that just happens to you. Success isn't a lottery ticket. It's an engineering problem you have to solve. This belief in having a plan is backed up by a key idea from venture capital, the power law. It basically means that in any portfolio, whether it's investments or projects or ideas, a very small number of them will end up delivering exponentially more results than all the others combined. So what's the takeaway? Don't spread yourself thin. Bet big on the 1 or 2 things that have that massive 10x potential. And where do these huge power law opportunities come from? Thiel says they come from secrets. These are important truths that very few people agree with you on. And these secrets exist not because they're impossible to find, but simply because conventional thinking has made people stop looking for them. Every single great company is built on a secret that it discovered. So let's say you found a secret. How do you actually build a company around it that will last? This is where we shift from the big ideas to the practical execution, focusing on the foundations, the culture, and yes, sales. Thiel argues that a startup's initial setup is kind of like the constitution of a country. It's incredibly difficult to change later on. That means getting the foundations right from day one is absolutely critical. We're talking about deep trust between founders, fair equity splits, an intentional culture, and a mission that truly inspires everyone on the team. He uses the famous PayPal mafia as a perfect example. The best startups, he says, feel more like cults or tribes than they do companies. People aren't just there for a paycheck. They're there because they are obsessed with the mission and feel this deep sense of loyalty to the team. And that mission so often involves technology. But what is technology's true purpose? This brings us to the relationship between man, machine, and mission. Thiel completely rejects the popular story that technology is just going to replace humans. Instead, he argues that the future belongs to human-machine collaboration. Computers are amazing at processing massive amounts of data, right? But humans are still way better at judgment and creativity. He points to PayPal's own fraud detection system as a prime example of this powerful synergy. Thiel then uses the failed clean tech boom of the 2000s as this huge cautionary tale. Billions of dollars were invested, but most of those companies completely collapsed because they couldn't answer 7 critical questions. And the first, most important question was about technology. Is your solution at least 10 times better than the existing alternative? And the tough questions just kept coming. Could they actually create a monopoly? Did they have a real plan for sales? Did they have the right team? See, most of these clean tech companies were driven by this broad sense of mission, but Thiel's point is that good intentions don't build a business. Markets reward real, tangible value. And all of these ideas, monopolies, secrets, definite optimism, they all culminate in one final profound choice. And this isn't just for founders, it's for all of us. Will we choose stagnation or singularity? And this slide just illustrates the choice perfectly. On one side, you have a future of stagnation, where we just keep copying the past. That's the 1 to N world. Or on the other side, we have a future of singularity, where we create the new. That's the world of 0 to 1. Thiel's ultimate message is a powerful call to action. As he puts it, the future is not a lottery, it is a design problem. Ultimately, 0 to 1 is so much more than a startup manual. It's a philosophy of creation. It's a challenge to think for yourself, to look for those secrets that are hiding in plain sight, and to believe that you actually have the power to build a better future. It's a manifesto for anyone who believes we can still create new things and move the world from 0 to 1. Thanks for joining us.